Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you've gathered and, well, really get into them. Today, it's all about something I think affects everyone, how we can make our cities, genuinely better for kids. And you, our listener, sent over a fantastic collection, including that City at Eye Level for Kids ebook. It's packed with stuff from all over the globe.
It really is a very rich set of sources. We're looking at everything from tiny community tweaks to like major city planning shifts.
Yeah.
And the sort of guiding light for this dive comes from the Bernard van Leer Foundation's Urban95 idea, basically asking, what would we do differently if we actually experienced the city from, say, 95 centimeters high, the height of a typical 3-year-old?
That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it, seeing it from down there?
Yeah.
So our mission today is to pull out the key ideas, look at some maybe surprising examples that seem to work, and find those actionable things cities can do. Because, as the sources suggest, making cities work for kids, well, it ends up making them better for all of us.
Exactly. It's quite profound, actually.
Okay, so let's dive in. What's the sort of core vision? What does a child-friendly city actually look like according to these materials?
Well, it's interesting when you dig into it, what kids want and need. It overlaps a lot with what adults want, too. It's not wildly different. Consistently, the sources are talking about safe streets, clean public spaces, sidewalks and bike lanes that feel properly protected. Access to green spaces is huge, obviously. Clean air. And just real chances for play and feeling secure or exploring their own neighborhood.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Independence, feeling safe enough to just be.
Yeah.
And it's not just about making kids happy, is it? There's that broader impact. That ARUP report, Cities Alive, Designing for Urban Childhood, seemed to really hit that point hard.
Absolutely. That report makes a really strong case that actually designing for children is like a catalyst for improving the whole city. Things like better public health, a boost for the local economy because people are out and about, more safer communities overall.
Right, a kind of positive feedback loop. Focus on the youngest, and everyone benefits.
Precisely. And that city at eye level idea really hones in on this. It's about, bringing back that human scale to urban development, thinking about the day-to-day experience, especially for those under 95 centimeters.
So it's more fundamental than just adding amenities.
Yeah, and it's not just about doing a few nice projects here and there. The sources really stress it needs to be a whole network, place-making initiatives, they call them, plus citywide strategies that actually bake the child's perspective into how decisions are made.
Okay, so embedding it, not just sprinkling it on top.
Exactly. It needs to be a lens you look through for all urban development.
So if that's the goal, we need to really understand how kids see the city differently. Why is their experience unique?
Well, fundamentally, it's physical, right? Their height, their size, their whole sensory world is different. They're down low, noticing textures on the pavement, tiny plants, sounds we tune out. And they interact physically in ways we often don't, running, jumping, crouching down, really engaging with stuff.
Yeah, I remember reading about kids as tactical urbanists, that idea from Desserteau. What does that actually mean here?
Right. So Desserteau talked about strategies, the big plans made by authorities, like adults designing a park. And then tactics are how people sort of spontaneously use those spaces in unintended ways, finding shortcuts, using benches for games, not just sitting.
Ah, okay. So kids are naturally doing this, finding the gaps.
Exactly. They're masters of tactics. They find these little crevices, as Desserteau put it, in the adult planned world and make them their own. That example from Varia in Greece, where kids used cameras, it showed their paths, their important spots, which were often overlooked by adults.
That's fascinating. And it ties into that Cairo study too, right? Kids using play areas in ways the designers maybe didn't expect.
Precisely. We see a slide, they might see a mountain to climb sideways or a den underneath. Understanding that inventiveness is just key. Which leads us to, okay, what do we need to focus on in design and planning?
Well, one thing that jumped out immediately was play beyond playgrounds. The idea that play shouldn't just be fenced off.
Yes, exactly. Play is fundamental for development. It can't just be confined to designated zones. We need to think about weaving playful elements into sidewalks, squares, bus stops, the everyday journey.
And that links to the hardware aspect, the physical design. That DTL project in Cartagena sounded interesting, youth regenerating courtyards.
Yeah, a great example of human-centered design involving the community. And what was really neat there was the adaptability. Playgrounds by day, maybe parking by night, smart use of space, driven by the users.
Okay, so that's the physical stuff. Then there's the software, the activities, the rules, how spaces are managed. The 78th Street Plaza in New York, that was insightful. Less rigid rules meant it worked better for more people, including teens.
Right. Sometimes overly strict rules, even if well-intentioned, can push people away, especially older kids who feel like they don't belong. That plaza, being more relaxed, became a more genuine community space, unlike the playground next door with all its "don't do this" signs.
So the management style really shapes the experience.
Hugely. Which brings us neatly to orgware, the participation bit, getting kids involved in the actual design.
This seems crucial. The sources really hammer this home.
Oh, absolutely. It's examples like Evergreen using animation in Canada to co-design nature play areas, or that Dead Forest playground in Gazowski Park, which was apparently very much led by the kids' own ideas. It gives them ownership.
And Play Streets Australia, empowering communities to reclaim their own streets for play.
Yeah, these initiatives show that when you give kids a real voice, they have fantastic ideas, and it builds that sense of belonging.
Another big theme was safe routes to school, making that journey safe and ideally enjoyable.
Critical. You read about the dangers kids face in cities like Warsaw or Jakarta, busy roads, no proper sidewalks that restricts their whole world. Whereas something like the Thessaloniki scheme in Greece, using participatory mapping where kids identify the problems and solutions, that's a positive model.
Yeah, getting their input on the actual routes they use. And then something I hadn't thought much about, plinths, the ground floors of buildings. How do they affect kids?
They have a surprisingly big impact. Think about walking down a street. Are the ground floors blank walls or active shop fronts? Small shops create chances for interaction, eyes on the street, for safety. And simple design things matter. Soft surfaces, maybe some color, interactive window displays low down at their eye level. It makes the street feel more alive and welcoming for them.
Little details making a big difference.
Totally. And then there's designing for seasons, not just static spaces.
Ah, yeah, embracing the changes, letting kids play with leaves, snow, puddles.
Exactly. Connects them more to the natural cycles, makes outdoor space interesting all year round, not just on perfect sunny days.
And of course, we can't just talk about children as one group. The sources mention different needs, right? Age, gender, vulnerability.
Very important point. The Urban95 focus on 0 to 3s highlights their very specific needs. Ramps, quiet spaces, sensory elements. Then you have initiatives like the Urban Girls movement, pointing out that girls might want or need different things from public space compared to boys, different types of play.
Things like safety, but also spaces for socializing, maybe less competitive play sometimes.
Could be. And it's crucial to think about kids in really tough situations. The work of the Calabaya refugee camp or post-disaster shelters in Peru, child-friendly design is arguably even more critical there.
Wow. Okay, so there are a lot of principles, but the sources were also full of really cool, specific examples from around the world.
Oh, definitely. So many innovative ideas out there.
Like the Mini Centro in Buenos Aires, turning a business district playful.
Yeah, a great example of adapting existing space. Or Street Fun in Caracas, using really low-cost, temporary stuff to bring neglected spaces back to life for kids. Quick wins.
And using Minecraft, you and Habitat, getting kids involved in design through gaming, that's smart.
It really is. Meets them where they are, lets them visualize and experiment. Similar idea with the Moment School project, using digital tools to map how kids feel about their school environment, getting that direct feedback.
Then there are physical projects like HOP in Singapore, co-created, with loose parts so the play can change.
Exactly. Empowering kids to shape their own play. And that Greek project, An Ant in August, using local myths, that connects kids to place and culture through play. Very creative.
It shows such a range, from big transformations to...
The things like Pito Niños in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Community-led play streets in areas that might otherwise be overlooked, or kids space in Belfast, where temporary setups actually informed permanent policy. That's a powerful link.
Right, using temporary stuff to test ideas and build support.
Yeah. And the KIC Garden in Shanghai Community Garden through participation. Or New York opening up schoolyards as public spaces after hours, using existing assets better.
And Rotterdam's Jump into Nature, connecting urban kids with green spaces nearby.
Even smaller things, like the Playbox U95, a mobile play space for the litterans. Or that Athens project using mythology and maps to plan kid-friendly routes. It all adds up.
Okay, so pulling all this together, what are the main lessons learned, the big recommendations coming out of these sources?
Well, a few things really shine through, I think. First, participation is non-negotiable. You have to involve kids. Second, really try to understand their unique perspective, that eye-level view.
Right, and integrating play everywhere, not just in playgrounds.
Definitely. Prioritizing safety and accessibility is fundamental. And remembering the diversity different ages, needs, circumstances.
And it's a job for everyone, isn't it? Planners, designers,
And
communities.
policymakers, and kids themselves. It's collaborative. I like those simple tests. The popsicle test, can a kid safely walk to get one?
Mm.
And the stroller test for the very young, they cut through the complexity.
Yeah, simple checks for livability. And it feels like a shift away from rigid top-down planning.
Towards more flexible, maybe bottom-up or at least co-created solutions, things tailored to the actual place and the kids using it.
And tactical urbanism seems key there, those smaller, quicker interventions.
Yeah, they let you experiment, build momentum, show what's possible without huge upfront investment. Very powerful.
So really, the core message seems to be designing cities with children. It's not just for them. It lifts the quality of life for absolutely everyone.
Exactly. It makes cities more human, more connected, more resilient, more fun. It's about building better cities, period.
So for you listening, maybe take a moment next time you're out in your own neighborhood. Try to see it from that 95-centimeter perspective. What do you notice? What small thing could make it feel more welcoming, more engaging for a child?
Yeah, and maybe think about this quote from Tim Gill. It really stuck with me.
Yeah.
A city can only truly say it is succeeding if all children are active, visible, and engaged users of its parks, playgrounds, streets, and civic spaces.
Mm-hmm.
How does your community stack up against that? And what's one small thing you could do maybe to nudge it in a more child-friendly direction?